Hello there. I am Sarang Deshpande, business manager at TraceLink. Welcome to another episode of Orchestrating Outcomes for External Manufacturing brought to you by TraceLink. Today, we continue to focus on the brand owner's perspective of supply chain digitalization. And I'm excited to have with me today Ceetal Amin, who is Director of External Manufacturing North America at Sandoz. I have known Ceetal for about 9 years now. We worked together at Sandoz on variety of projects ranging from, I think we started with SNOP, and we deep dived into a lot of supply chain analytics projects that were focusing on supplier performance, customer OTIF, procurement lead times, days of coverage adherence, back order management, and the list goes on. And it of course it was all focusing on a broad list of key external suppliers that we were working with, and each presented their unique challenges and opportunities. But maybe let me hand it over to Sheetal first before we get deep into these challenges and opportunities, to give her a chance to introduce herself. And maybe Sheetal, you can walk us through your background and experience before we get started on this topic.
Of course, of course. So first of all, thank you for having me. My name is Ceetal Amin. I am, as Sarang said, I'm the Director of North America External Supply Chain at Sandoz. I've been with the company for over 9 years now, but within the pharmaceutical space for 20 plus years, and I've held various different roles within supply chain. In my current role, I'm responsible for US and Canada market supply, which is specifically sourced from external suppliers.
That's good to know, and I think with that amount of experience, you must have seen a lot of changes that have happened in the industry for the last 20 years. But I think one thing that I believe has not changed, which is things are still very manual on the supply chain side of things. So maybe let's start with a very basic question, right? Like, what does supply chain digitalization mean to you? Maybe just start with that before we get any deeper on that topic.
Sure. So, like you said, I mean, not a lot has changed in 20 years, where we are still very much physically sharing data on a somewhat frequent basis. So, for me, supply chain digitalization would mean that we have better collaboration and communication between the brand owner and the CMOs. We would also be able to have real-time visibility to any changes that are happening on the manufacturing site itself. Hopefully, this will enable faster response times, which would improve our customer service through, of course, better communication. And hopefully, through all of this, we can also achieve better costs and better outputs from the CMO.
You are right. I mean, we need this digital integration, or digitalization is a need of the hour. But one of the things that I've also noticed, right, the brand owners and CMOs, they always have objectives that are not in line with each other. In a sense, the brand owners expect flexibility and agility. They want to place a purchase order that something needs to be delivered in 3 weeks from now, or they would want to cancel a purchase order which is about to be delivered in 3 weeks from now. Versus CMOs, they're expecting a very consistent output. They expect a smooth throughput. And these goals seem to be conflicting with each other, because CMOs, of course, need a longer lead time to make sure everything is lined up, and they don't like these last minute surprises. But that's the need of the hour from the brand owners. So do you believe that if the supply chain digitalization is implemented appropriately, we can close this gap? And if yes, can you elaborate how we can close that gap?
Yes. So I do believe that we can most certainly close that gap, but I think it comes down to whether the partner is also strategic in nature or not, right? So not every CMO that you're going to have is going to bear the same weight in terms of strategy for the company. You're going to have strategic suppliers, you're going to have suppliers that are more transactional in nature. So for the strategic ones, I do believe that this can certainly help, where if you're constantly being able to share data in a real-time basis, maybe you're able to agree ahead of time that there's certain molecules that we're going to hold additional safety stock on, maybe some
Hmm.
long lead time items for APIs and excipients might be purchased ahead of time. Again, looking at the forecast and not so much looking at the firm PO that's coming through the system. But I do believe that these discussions are more strategic in nature, and if with a strategic CMO, yes, then if you take that, couple it with digital integration, then I do believe we can close the gap here. Absolutely.
Right, right, right. I mean, what I'm getting from you is that the strategic relationship is of extreme importance. And it's not just the digital integration, but there are certain processes that might need to change. For example, the CMO might need to hold a little more of API. There will be an alignment that needs to be there in terms of the forecast sharing. So it's not just that, hey, you are digitally integrated and that solves the problem for you. You basically need to rewire your processes and make sure that you are having the right strategic alignment to get that going. That makes sense. But I mean, this doesn't seem to be rocket science, right? I mean, this seems to be a very natural thing to happen. But then why are we seeing so much of hesitancy in terms of taking this leap of getting into the digital integration, both on the CMO and the brand owner's perspective? Do we believe that that they're scared of the technology, or is it the, or do they believe it's too expensive, or maybe they think it's the speed of implementation, or who knows? I mean, these are some of the big things that come to my mind, but you might have some additional perspective on why are they holding themselves back on undertaking this journey.
So from what I've seen, I think cost plays a big role. Usually implementing something like this does require an investment from both sides, right? It's not just the brand owner making the investment's required from a CMO as well. And again, I think this how strategic the supplier is in nature does play a role here, right? Strategic suppliers that know they're strategic suppliers for you are probably more willing to bear some of the cost versus a supplier that may not be. Um, I think overall IT infrastructure can play a role as well. If the right infrastructure isn't there, that can be a reason why things don't move forward in the right speed and in the right time frame. And then I still believe that though data sharing in real time definitely has its advantages, right? It gives you the ability to react much faster to changes. But the idea of data sharing is something that I believe people are still hesitant to do. At what point, you know, how confident are you that the data that you're sharing is not being used in ways that it shouldn't? And I think this is something that, you know, people just kind of need to come to terms with. But those are areas where I do feel can maybe prevent these discussions and these initiatives from moving forward.
Right, right, right. No, I mean, and I mean, this is not the first time we are hearing about the data sharing aspect. That are we sharing too much? And I think I've heard it from both the sides, where the brand owners may say that, hey, why do you need to know our forecast? You just produce to what we are going to ask you. And sometimes the CMOs also say that I don't want to open all the doors. I might be making stuff for other customers also, and I don't want to give away too much information. But I think it all comes back to the fact that if you are having that strategic alignment, then that trust naturally develops. And of course, cost is a big aspect of it. But if the cost piece is tied to a return on investment, and if both the parties are willing to put in, I think that can be solved. But maybe let's also think about that. We have been talking about what is the roadblocks that are hitting, that the CMOs or the brand owners are hitting when they are getting into this journey. But there could also be some hesitation from the internal teams at the brand owners or at the CMOs, for example. But there is a piece of change management that comes into the role also. I mean, I have seen examples where there are certain supply relationship managers or planners who believe that, hey, if it's too automated, I may not even have control over the data that is being exchanged. I may not have visibility. There might be a PO of, I don't know, a few million that might just go out without me knowing about it, and the system might trigger it because now everything is electronically connected. What is your thought on these hesitations or apprehensions that are being put out by some of the end users? And maybe what are some of the ways that we can overcome these hesitations? Would be good to know.
So I think when it comes to automation, there's always going to be some level of skepticism from everyone. I don't believe that we can avoid that. I think the key is being able to educate all the team members to help them understand digital integration and how it can help when it comes to information and data flow. I think it's also helping the team realize that we're not just going to blindly implement a system. There's going to be thorough testing that's involved through various different scenarios, right? And then the end users at the end of the day are going to be the ones that are testing the system. It's not going to be done by people that are not going to be using the system every day. And then going back to your point about a PO being placed of high value without being checked. I think you can initially put some checks and balances in place, right? Maybe come up with a value that up to a certain value that you're comfortable with, you let those POs flow automatically through the system. But if, I don't know, maybe a PO value of 200,000, anything above that needs to go through a management check to make sure that, the requirement is needed before it flows through to the CMO. I think stuff like that can definitely be done initially to kind of ease people's minds on the apprehensions there. And then I think once you see some sustained performance over a course of a couple of months, again, define that ahead of time, what that time frame may look like, whether it's 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, whatever it may be. But once you've had some sustained performance, then after that you can maybe turn the full automation on and really reap the benefits of the system.
Yeah. No. I think that it's almost like a stepped approach, and you are right, absolutely right. I mean, everybody is going to be skeptical about automation, but if you have, I think the two key things, right? If you have a thorough testing, I mean, the requirements are laid out very meticulously, and testing is done thoroughly, and then you have those checks and balances in place that you just gradually go around loosening the checks and balances, and of course you keep continuously monitoring the process that should solve this problem. But I agree. I mean, it's not going to be a day one switch where you just turn on the switch and everything is taken care of. You have to keep closely monitoring that. But I believe it should add value to the overall process, where you are now taking maybe 3 days today from the team to help them get the requirements and test, and you're going to give them 30 days back. So I think it's all worth that effort. So so going a little deeper, right? There are so many intricate processes or KPIs that are dependent on your effective collaboration with the CMOs. I mean, we can talk about a lot of KPIs, but the two KPIs that come to my mind immediately is lost sales and the inventory on hand or inventory coverage that you have. And they are almost competing or contrasting and equally important KPIs. I mean, probably a simple solution to overcome lost sales is to just beef up the inventory. But that, of course, comes up with a holding cost, and there is always risk of obsolescence. Versus if you try to reduce it, and if there is a big fluctuation in the market, you run the risk of losing the sales that might be coming your way. So how do you manage the balance between these two competing KPIs? Meaning, do you think that your digital integration with the external suppliers can help balance these KPIs? And if you believe yes, can you elaborate how that can help?
So I would say right now the things are done very manually, right? And the reaction time is very slow to be able to respond to lost sales or inventory coverages that may be very high. So I do think that if we are able to move forward with supply chain digitalization and put systems in place where we can share our data much more effectively, efficiently in real time, then I do believe that you can react faster, right? At the end of the day, yes, it's still a reaction, but you're reacting faster to information because you're seeing the information as it's happening. So I think there you will be able to have more efficiency that can come out of this. You can have the conversations with your stakeholders earlier to be able to respond to certain changes, whether it's sales or inventory. And that should hopefully help um, the overall end game much faster.
Yep. And I think partly, I think I can tie this back to one of the previous answers you gave, where you mentioned that if you are having a strategic relationship and they are holding some safety stock for the API and they're reserving some inventory, then if there's a market fluctuation, you can always have that opportunity to postpone your production, get it from them. So you are not really beefing up too much on your finished goods inventory, yet you are, as you rightly said, you are able to react faster to those market fluctuations. So I think that makes a lot of sense. But then taking it a little further, right, maybe can you give us some idea on how are the current supply chain setups that you have seen in the industry as it pertains to external suppliers? I have been in a couple of conferences where we did some surveys to understand what are the setups that the brand owners there were involved in. And I have seen most of them were having a make to order setup. There was maybe one or two exceptions where they had a VMI or a make to stock setup. But I believe that this is probably not the most ideal, though most widely used setup. So maybe can you tell me some challenges and limitations of that make to order setup, and what can be done to overcome those challenges?
Of course. So you're absolutely right. The external suppliers that even I'm used to working with, we are still very much in a make to order type of environment. And that typically means that production and material planning, procurement of certain materials wouldn't necessarily occur until the firmed order is in place. Now, the benefit of this is obviously in a supplier point of view, CMO point of view, you are preventing any cost that could be associated with obsolete stock. But the biggest drawback in this is our inability to be able to react to any demand changes quickly, particularly when a demand is going up, right? So I think the better approach, and again, I think this comes back to suppliers that are strategic in nature, maybe certain molecules that are very important to the business, having those discussions with the CMOs ahead of time where there is certain materials, long lead time items that you procure ahead of time, agree on we will hold X amount of safety stock for these items so that we have a better ability to be able to respond to any market fluctuations that are happening. So yes, that I would believe that would be the better approach, but I don't think that you can do that with every molecule. I don't think we can do that with every supplier. Again, I think you have to look at the business and have that commercial alignment as well on which products do you want to ultimately be able to protect and grow for the future.
Right. So, I mean, I think there is no one solution fits all approach that we need to use. We need to be very clear on which are the suppliers, which are the molecules where we want to go with a different setup. There could be cases where this make to order setup makes more sense because it's probably a very stable molecule, very stable demand. We don't see any supply issues, but wherever there is a reasonable fluctuation or there is an opportunity to improve your margins or sales, and they are critical to your business, maybe you need to think a little differently on that.